Why do the smartest minds often struggle while the average ones thrive? Why does society celebrate mediocrity but punish true genius? Have you ever noticed how the most creative, intelligent, and forward-thinking individuals often face rejection, isolation, or even ridicule? Take a moment and think about it. History is filled with geniuses who were misunderstood in their time. Nikola Tesla, the man who revolutionized electricity, died alone and broke. Vincent van Gogh, one of the greatest artists of all time, sold only one painting in his lifetime. Galileo, a scientific pioneer, was condemned by the very society he sought to enlighten. Meanwhile, mediocrity is rewarded. The people who fit neatly into the system, who follow the rules without question, who don't challenge the status quo, these are the ones who succeed, who are praised, promoted, and placed on pedestals. But why? Why does society function this way? And more importantly, what can you do about it? This video is about an uncomfortable truth, a truth that affects how we think, how we work, and how we live. It's about how society is designed in a way that favors the average and resists the exceptional. It's about how systems, institutions, and even our own psychology work against those who dare to think differently. And if you've ever felt like you don't fit in, if you've ever been told that you're too much, too smart, or too ambitious, then this video is for you. We'll explore why mediocrity is rewarded and why brilliance is often a curse rather than a gift. We'll break down the hidden forces that shape success and failure, and by the end of this journey, you'll have a clearer understanding of how to navigate this paradox. The goal of this video isn't just to complain about society's flaws. It's to open your eyes to the patterns that hold people back, so you can break free from them. We'll uncover how the education system, workplaces, media, and even social circles discourage originality and critical thinking. We'll discuss why being too smart can sometimes work against you and how you can turn this disadvantage into your greatest strength. Because here's the thing, genius is not just about intelligence. It's about courage, the courage to think differently, to challenge norms, to see what others don't see. So, if you've ever felt like you don't belong, if you've ever questioned why mediocrity is celebrated while true talent is ignored, you're not alone. And in this video, we're going to break it all down. Are you ready to see the truth? Throughout history, society has had a strange relationship with genius. The very minds that bring the world forward, the visionaries, the pioneers, the innovators, are often the ones who suffer the most. While their ideas change the course of human history, they are rarely celebrated in their time. Instead, they face resistance, ridicule, and even persecution. Let's look at some of the greatest minds who were rejected by society only to be recognized as geniuses long after their deaths. In the early 1600s, Galileo Galilei made a discovery that shook the foundations of society. He proved that the Earth was not the center of the universe, but rather it orbited around the sun. This idea, known as heliocentrism, was revolutionary. But instead of praise, Galileo faced fierce opposition from the church and scholars of his time. His findings challenged the established beliefs that had been followed for centuries. He was labeled a heretic, forced to recant his views, and placed under house arrest for the rest of his life. Think about that. One of the greatest scientific minds in history was silenced because his ideas were too advanced for his era. And yet, centuries later, his work became the foundation for modern astronomy. The very people who opposed him were proven wrong. But Galileo never got to see the world embrace his truth. Now, let's talk about Vincent van Gogh, one of the most famous artists of all time. His paintings are now worth millions, yet during his lifetime, he sold only one. Van Gogh was not just an artist, he was a revolutionary. His bold use of color, emotion, and technique was unlike anything the world had seen. But instead of admiration, he faced rejection, criticism, and isolation. Society wasn't ready for his art. People saw his work as strange, chaotic, even ugly. He spent his life in poverty, struggling with mental illness, and ultimately, he died, without knowing the impact he would have on the world. Today, he is celebrated as a genius, a symbol of creativity and passion. But in his time, he was just another struggling artist that society ignored. Then there's Nikola Tesla, the man who quite literally lit up the world. Tesla's discoveries in electricity, wireless energy, and radio waves were far ahead of his time. But instead of being rewarded, Tesla was exploited, betrayed, and forgotten. Powerful businessmen, like Thomas Edison and J.P. Morgan, saw him as a threat. His groundbreaking ideas were either stolen or suppressed because they didn't fit into the profit-driven model of the time. Despite his genius, Tesla died penniless, alone in a hotel room while others took credit for his work. Today, we recognize him as one of the greatest inventors in history. But during his life, society pushed him aside. So, what do all these stories have in common? It's simple. Society fears change. Throughout history, new ideas have always been met with skepticism, hostility, and resistance. People don't like what they don't understand. And when someone challenges the way things have always been, they become a target. 3 key reasons why society punishes genius. Fear of the unknown. People find comfort in what's familiar. A genius often introduces something too new, too radical, and it disrupts the way people see the world. Threat to power. Those in control, whether it's governments, corporations, or institutions, don't like change that threatens their authority. Many geniuses challenge the status quo, and that makes them dangerous. Lack of immediate recognition. True genius often requires time to be understood. What seems crazy or impossible in one era becomes obvious and revolutionary in the next. This is the tragic pattern that has repeated throughout history. The brightest minds, the most forward-thinking individuals, rarely get the recognition they deserve while they are alive. But here's the question. Does this still happen today? The answer is yes, and in the next chapter, we'll explore exactly how modern society continues to reward mediocrity while suppressing true brilliance. Let's move forward. Society claims to admire intelligence, creativity, and innovation. But in reality, it fears them. Instead of celebrating those who think differently, society often pushes them down in favor of what feels familiar, safe, and easy. But why does this happen? Why does society prefer mediocrity over brilliance? The answer lies in human psychology. Humans, by nature, crave stability. Change is uncomfortable. It forces people to question what they believe, adapt to new realities, and leave their comfort zones. And most people don't want to do that. Imagine you've lived your entire life believing one thing, then someone comes along and proves you wrong. What's your first reaction? Most people don't say, "Wow, I was wrong. Thank you for showing me the truth." Instead, they resist, they argue, they cling to the old belief because it feels safe. This is why revolutionary thinkers often face hostility instead of admiration. We see this in history. When Galileo proved the Earth revolved around the sun, people weren't excited, they were terrified. His discovery shook their worldview, and instead of embracing the truth, they attacked the messenger. This pattern repeats itself over and over. Mediocrity thrives because it is comfortable. It doesn't challenge people. It doesn't force them to think, adapt, or improve. People prefer familiarity over excellence. They would rather watch average entertainment, follow safe career paths, and surround themselves with people who think like them. Because standing out, that's dangerous. In many cultures, there's an unspoken rule. Don't stand out too much. Don't rise too high. Stay in your lane. This is known as tall poppy syndrome, a term that describes how society tends to cut down people who rise above the rest. The phrase comes from an old idea. If one poppy flower grows taller than the others, it gets cut down. To maintain uniformity, and this applies to people too, a student who's too smart is labeled a know-it-all and bullied. A worker who outperforms everyone else is seen as a threat, not an asset. A visionary who challenges the system is ridiculed, ignored, or even silenced. People don't just ignore genius, they actively suppress it. Why? Because someone else's success can feel like a reminder of their own mediocrity. It's easier to bring others down than to rise up yourself. Mediocrity feels like fairness. Society often disguises its fear of excellence as a love for fairness. We hear things like, everyone should have an equal chance, nobody should be better than anyone else. It's unfair for one person to succeed too much. But let's be honest, life isn't fair. Some people are naturally more talented, more intelligent, or more driven than others. That's just reality. And instead of celebrating these individuals, society often levels the playing field by pulling them down. In schools, gifted students are held back to match the pace of the class. In workplaces, employees are told not to outshine their peers. In culture, ambition is mocked, while mediocrity is rewarded. This is why average people often succeed while geniuses struggle. Because mediocrity plays by society's rules, and genius doesn't. But here's the problem. When a society prioritizes comfort over progress, it stagnates. The most brilliant ideas never reach the world. The greatest minds give up or burn out. Humanity loses its potential. We see this today. Mediocre content goes viral. Mediocre leaders rise to power. Mediocre businesses dominate industries, not because they're the best, but because they fit the mold. And those who refuse to conform, they struggle. They get pushed aside, but not forever. History has shown us something important. Even when society resists change, it can't stop it forever. The greatest minds, the true visionaries, they always find a way. And in the next chapter, we'll explore exactly how genius survives despite society's efforts to suppress it. Let's continue. Imagine this. A young child, bursting with curiosity, asks endless questions. Why is the sky blue? What if we could talk to animals? How? Do planes fly? But as they grow older, something happens. The questions stop. The curiosity fades. The creativity dies, not because the child changed, but because the system forced them to. Our education system is not designed to create innovators, leaders, or visionaries. It's designed to produce obedient workers, people who follow instructions, memorize facts, and never question authority. And that's why it destroys genius before it even has a chance to grow. Let's be honest. Schools don't teach how to think. They teach what to think. From the moment a child enters school, they are given a rigid structure. Sit in straight rows, follow the schedule, memorize information, take tests. Don't question the teacher. Sounds familiar? That's because this system was not designed for creativity. It was designed for control. The modern education system was heavily influenced by the Industrial Revolution. Factories needed obedient workers, not thinkers, not innovators, not leaders. And so, schools became factories, producing students who could follow rules, obey authority, and work within the system. But here's the problem. Genius doesn't fit in a box. Standardized testing rewards rote memorization over critical thinking. It teaches students to give the right answer instead of asking, what if there's a better way? Think about it. When was the last time a multiple-choice test measured creativity, problem-solving, or innovation? It doesn't. Because creativity isn't standardized. Albert Einstein once said, "Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it is stupid." And that's exactly what our school system does. It takes brilliant minds and forces them into a one-size-fits-all model. A gifted artist? Sorry, art won't help you pass math. A natural musician? Focus on standardized test scores instead. A problem-solving genius? That won't get you full marks if you don't show your work exactly how the teacher wants. Slowly, students learn to suppress their creativity. They stop questioning, they stop exploring, they conform, and society rewards them for it. Genius isn't always about IQ or intelligence. It's about original thinking, seeing the world differently, solving problems in new ways. But here's the sad truth. Genius is often punished in schools, not encouraged. The child who asks too many questions is told to stop disrupting the class. The student who challenges a teacher's point is labeled disrespectful. The kid who thinks differently is called weird or a troublemaker. And after years of this treatment, even the brightest minds eventually give up. They stop asking questions. They stop challenging authority. They stop thinking for themselves. They become exactly what the system wanted: obedient, predictable, and average. Why does the education system fear independent thinkers? Because true intelligence is dangerous to those who thrive on control. A society that teaches people how to think critically will produce individuals who question the system, challenge corruption, and create radical change. And radical change threatens the status quo. This is why many of history's greatest minds were rebels in school. Albert Einstein was told he would never amount to anything. Thomas Edison's teachers thought he was too slow to learn. Steve Jobs was a college dropout who rejected traditional education. These were not bad students. They were students trapped in a bad system, a system that rewards memorization over imagination, a system that values obedience over originality, a system that kills creativity before it can even bloom. But here's the good news. The system is not unbreakable. More and more people are realizing that the traditional education system is failing. Alternative schools are embracing creativity over rigid structures. Online education is giving people the freedom to learn on their own terms. Self-education is becoming more valuable than a college degree because in the real world, genius isn't measured by test scores. It's measured by impact. The most successful people didn't succeed because they followed the rules. They succeeded because they broke them. Here's the truth. If you want to be extraordinary, you have to unlearn what school taught you. Think for yourself. Question everything. Embrace creativity. Reject mediocrity, because the education system may try to create a factory of mediocrity. But the world is shaped by the few who refuse to fit in. And in the next chapter, we'll explore exactly how modern workplaces continue this cycle, rewarding mediocrity while suppressing true genius. Why do average performers often climb the corporate ladder? How does playing it safe get rewarded while risk-takers are penalized? And why do so many companies crush innovation instead of nurturing it? In this chapter, we'll uncover how the modern workplace mirrors the flaws of the education system, rewarding conformity over creativity and mediocrity over brilliance. In most workplaces, success isn't about being the smartest or the most innovative. It's about fitting in. Employees who follow the rules, avoid rocking the boat, and meet expectations are the ones who get promoted. Meanwhile, the ones who challenge the status quo, propose bold ideas, or think outside the box are often seen as troublemakers. Why? Because corporations, like schools, are designed for stability, not change. Think about it. When was the last time a company rewarded an employee for saying, "This is how we can completely reinvent our business"? Most of the time, that employee is ignored, or worse, fired. Why? Because true innovation is risky. It disrupts the status quo. It challenges the way things have always been done, and in a system built on predictability, risk is seen as a threat. History is filled with examples of companies that punished genius and paid the price. Take Blockbuster, for example. When Netflix proposed a partnership to shift to online streaming, Blockbuster laughed them out of the room. Why? Because Blockbuster was comfortable with its existing model. It didn't want to take the risk of trying something new, and we all know how that story ended. Or consider Kodak. They actually invented the digital camera, but instead of embracing it, they buried the technology to protect their film business. The result? Bankruptcy. These companies didn't fail because they lacked talent or resources. They failed because they punished innovation and rewarded mediocrity. So why do workplaces prefer average performers over exceptional ones? The answer lies in human psychology. Most people, especially those in positions of power, fear change. They prefer the comfort of predictability over the uncertainty of innovation. And when someone comes along with a bold new idea, it threatens that comfort. This is why so many workplaces actively suppress creativity. They reward employees who follow instructions without question, stick to the script, avoid taking risks, and they penalize those who challenge the status quo, propose radical ideas, think differently. But here's the problem. When companies prioritize conformity over creativity, they stagnate. They lose their competitive edge. They miss out on groundbreaking opportunities. They fail to adapt to changing markets. And, in the end, they get left behind. The good news is, not all workplaces are like this. Some of the most successful companies in the world, like Google, Apple, and Tesla, actively encourage innovation. They reward employees who think differently. They embrace risk and experimentation. They understand that true success comes from breaking the rules, not following them. And that's the key to thriving in the modern workplace. If you want to succeed, don't play it safe. Think differently. Take risks. Challenge the status quo. Because the world doesn't need more obedient workers. It needs more geniuses. And in the next chapter, we'll explore how media and pop culture glorify mediocrity, and what you can do to rise above it. Have you ever felt like you don't belong? Like your ideas are too big, your thoughts too deep, or your ambitions too extreme? If so, you're not alone. History is filled with stories of misfits, those who were misunderstood, ridiculed, or even rejected before they became legends. But here's the truth. Surviving in a world that fears brilliance takes more than just talent. It takes strategy. So how do you thrive as a misfit genius without losing yourself? Let's break it down. Most geniuses struggle not because they lack talent, but because they don't understand the system they're up against. Society is built on rules of conformity. The education system rewards obedience. The corporate world promotes those who play it safe, and the media glorifies mediocrity while mocking intellectual depth. Fighting this system head-on is a losing battle. Instead, understand it, then learn how to outsmart it. If you come across as too radical, people will reject your ideas. Instead of fighting, frame your genius in a way that feels relatable. The best thinkers translate their brilliance into something people can grasp. Example: Steve Jobs didn't sell computers. He sold a vision of the future. Many geniuses fail because they wait for validation instead of leveraging existing structures. Use the corporate world, institutions, or even mainstream media to build resources before breaking free. Example: Elon Musk made money through PayPal before launching Tesla and SpaceX. Play the game long enough to rewrite the rules. Most people fear what they don't understand. If you want your ideas to succeed, you must rebel smartly. Not every battle needs to be fought. Sometimes blending in buys you time and resources. The key is knowing when to reveal your true brilliance. Example: Nikola Tesla was a visionary but struggled because he challenged everything at once. Meanwhile, Albert Einstein worked quietly, built credibility, and then changed physics. Timing is everything. Not everyone will understand you, and that's okay. Instead of arguing with those who refuse to see, focus on those who are ready to listen. Example: Galileo was condemned by the church, but he found allies in the scientific community who carried his work forward. Impact doesn't come from proving everyone wrong. It comes from finding the right audience. No genius succeeds alone. Surround yourself with people who challenge, inspire, and understand you. In a world that fears brilliance, your tribe is your shield. Example: the Renaissance wasn't built by one genius. It was a network of great minds pushing each other forward. Genius alone doesn't win. Genius with influence and connections does. Learn how to connect with people who have power and resources. Even if they don't understand your vision, they can help you bring it to life. Example: Leonardo da Vinci had talent, but it was his ability to gain powerful patrons that allowed him to create his masterpieces. Genius without influence is just a dream. Genius with the right allies changes the world. Many brilliant minds face a painful choice: stay true to their vision or fit in with the world. But the truth is, you don't have to choose. Your ideas are sacred. Never compromise them. But how you present them can change based on the audience. Example: Richard Feynman explained complex physics using simple, relatable stories. He didn't dumb down the truth. He framed it for understanding. Some ideas take time to be accepted. You don't have to be understood immediately. Keep refining your vision while waiting for the world to catch up. Example: Vincent van Gogh died unrecognized, but his work became legendary when the world was finally ready for it. Don't rush genius. Let it grow. Geniuses aren't just thinkers. They are builders, disruptors, and visionaries. But to thrive, you must embrace your role. Yes, society will resist you. Yes, people will misunderstand you. Yes, the system will try to keep you small, but history belongs to those who refuse to shrink. Forget what society says success should be. Define your own mission, impact, and legacy. The best revenge against a world that doubts you: build something they can't ignore. Example: Thomas Edison didn't waste time convincing people he was right. He just invented the light bulb. The world may resist genius, but it cannot stop it. To thrive, you must understand the system, then outsmart it. Rebel strategically, picking the right battles. Find your tribe, because no one wins alone. Balance authenticity with adaptation. And most importantly, build something legendary, because in the end, the misfits, the rebels, the ones who refuse to conform, they are the ones who change the world. Mediocrity isn't just a mindset, it's a trap. From school to work, society conditions you to follow, not think. To conform, not question. To play it safe, not take risks. If you want to break free, you need a strategy. This chapter is your step-by-step guide to escaping the mediocrity trap and reclaiming your potential. Most people never break free because they never stop to question the system. If everyone is doing something, ask why. If something is considered normal, question who benefits from it. Example: the 9-to-5 job structure was created during the Industrial Revolution. It's outdated, yet most people blindly follow it. Read unconventional books. Listen to debates, not just speeches. Surround yourself with contradicting viewpoints. Keep a why journal. Write down things you don't understand and research them. Society traps people in mediocrity by making them replaceable. Stop relying on general skills. Specialize. Learn rare in-demand skills that set you apart. Examples: coding. AI won't replace people who build AI. Persuasion and sales. Influence is recession-proof. Critical thinking. The ability to analyze and adapt is priceless. Traditional education ends. Real education never stops. Commit to reading, experimenting, and failing forward. Mediocrity thrives on dependency. Stop depending on a single paycheck. Start investing, freelancing, or creating. Example: the wealthiest people own assets. They don't trade time for money. If you don't control your schedule, you don't control your life. Prioritize freedom over stability. Your environment dictates your success. If people mock your ambition, cut them off. If someone drains your energy, walk away. Join high-level communities. Seek out mentors who've done what you want to do. Most people never escape mediocrity because they keep waiting for the perfect opportunity. Write down 3 major changes you will make this month. Take one uncomfortable but necessary risk. Start before you're ready. Be okay with failing, adjust, learn, and keep moving. The mediocrity trap is everywhere, but it doesn't have to. Be your reality. To escape, think independently. Question everything. Master high-value skills. Become irreplaceable. Build financial freedom. Stop relying on permission. Upgrade your environment. Surround yourself with winners. Take action now. This is your wake-up call. Now the only question is, what will you do with it? For too long, you've been told to blend in. You've been conditioned to play it safe, follow the rules, and not make waves. But deep down, you know that's not you. This book wasn't just about identifying the mediocrity trap. It was about breaking free from it. Now you have the map. The next move is yours.